Good afternoon. My name's Nick Stone. I'm ARC Group Conference Producer. I'm responsible for running the annual Knowledge Management Summit that we will be having in May in London. Delighted to introduce Karen Battersby, who is Director of Knowledge, Learning and Development at Charles Russell Speechlys. And this afternoon we'd like to talk a little bit about what you get up to in your work, and also to talk about some of the things that you'll be going through when you come along, as we'll be seeing Karen at our event, our Knowledge Management event in May. So we look forward to seeing you there. So I thought I'd catch up with you and find out what you're doing and ask you a few questions about some of the activities and some of the challenges that you're facing at the moment. And I'd like to begin with some of your top 3 challenges in really getting knowledge management resources and lawyers tap into those resources. What are those challenges, do you think, Karen?
Well, thank you, Nick, and thank you for inviting me to the event. Yeah, I think it's always a challenge in knowledge management to get lawyers to actually adopt the resources, processes or systems that you're trying to put in place. And that's because it's all about change management, and change is intrinsically difficult for people. They're very wedded to what they know and love. As you know, in knowledge management, we're often looking at their documentation or the way in which they do a legal process, and through their practice they'll have grown up with, you know, their own favourite way of doing things, their own bottom drawer documents, and very often we're trying to say there's a newer or a more streamlined way of actually doing that. So it's about, a challenge is actually getting people to understand why we need to change, how that's going to benefit not only the firm or the practice, but also them individually. So the what's in it for me is a starting point. And then it's often about, for example, if you're introducing a new system, people are very comfortable with what they already know, the way things look and feel. So there can be an issue around getting people to adopt a new system or a new interface, and you need to really focus on the training element. And I'd say third challenge with adoption, particularly for lawyers because they are experts, is that they can sometimes tend to think that their way of doing things is very bespoke, and that it doesn't really lend itself to being changed. It's very individual, which is sometimes true, but often there are things that we can do to help make their practice and their processes and documents better. So again, you have to get over that barrier of it, you know, not being viewed as totally bespoke.
I detect something around influence there, and you talked about coaxing people and communications. I wonder what you think some of the ways that how you go about influencing people as you take them through a journey to a new destination, a new way of working. How do you influence people carefully and thoughtfully?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, influence is key to being successful in introducing new ways of doing things, and it's all about communication. As I say, a lot of communication up front about the need for change, getting people involved, why they, may see a need for change, what are their pain points, what are the things that would make their life easier. So that's a key part of engagement. And then involving them in the new process or the new thing that you're designing, because they are the people who are working on it day to day, so getting them engaged. But I think it's also about using as many other influences as possible. So senior management buy-in is really important. We have KM partners who act as champions, who help spread the message or gather feedback from the groups, help the professional support lawyers to understand what's going on. And again, the more people that you have involved in the process, that's going to help. I think also trialling things with people, using user groups so that people are also involved in the feedback loop. That also helps tremendously. It's a kind of ongoing communication engagement process that you need to put in place.
That sounds like a process and a challenge and a transition. Yeah. And I wonder how you take people through that transition from their old comfort zone to a new destination.
Yeah, well, I think you have to start by really understanding what's going on to start with, and as I say, finding out the pain points. So they could be individual, are people finding that something's very time consuming? Are they wasting time searching for things? Does documentation that they're using, they're finding that it's not helping them clinch deals quickly enough? But there'll also be the business aspects of, is something not being delivered very efficiently or profitably? And so you really have to delve into that. Sometimes you have to sort of do a map of what's going on and work out where you can make the interventions, again with the people who are at the front line, the lawyers or other people that you're trying to influence. And then I think once you've understood all that, you can start to work on, well, how would we change this? And this, as I say, is where perhaps you will want to form a user group, a focus group to help you along the way. You want to test out models, you'll maybe want to run trials. So wherever possible, before we introduce something new, be it a system or a documentation, we will try and have a trial run, or some sort of earlier attempt before we actually roll it out fully and make sure we've got all the feedback. But even at the end, that's not the end of the story, because when you have people moving to the new whatever it is, there's going to be a feedback loop. So I like to get lots of people on the ground, the professional support lawyers, the trainers, floor walking, helping people through. If it's new documents, you need to train them on the rationale. So there's a lot of interaction all along the way, both before, during launch and after.
So we've talked about resources, and we talked about support, and we talked about transition. But coming back to support, what do you think are the key measurable supports that you can bring to lawyers? Is it senior management? Is it something else? What do you think it is, Karen?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to have the senior management buy-in, to have the leaders of the firm, sponsoring the initiatives, also being part of the message as to why this is important, how it will help and benefit people. So that's key, really, to getting some gravitas behind the change. But I think involving lots of people, as I mentioned, having people on the ground, perhaps when you've launched a change, to help people through that initial first try of something, having lots of guidance resources, and having the feedback loop is really important. If something that you've introduced isn't working, people need to be confident that they can feedback and that you're going to take notice of that and you're actually going to do something about it. So it's an ongoing iteration of continuous improvement, even after you have tried to introduce a new resource or a new system, that I think works best.
Great. Karen, look, thanks for your time this afternoon, for dropping in. We'll be seeing Karen at our Knowledge Management Annual Summit in May. Karen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.